Thank you everyone for joining us today for the fifth and final community engagement session for the College of the Rockies Learning Commons and Library Design. My name is Tracy Evans and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator here at Barry Architecture and Associates.
And I am Isaac Martinez. I'm an architect here at Barry Architecture and Associates.
And behind the camera, we also have Tracy Wells, who's helping us out as well. We would like to just start off by acknowledging that the College of the Rockies Library exists on the unceded ancestral lands of the Ktunaxa and Kambasket peoples. We are grateful for the opportunity to work, live, and grow within these traditional territories. Last Thursday, we focused on the last design principle, retain, in relation to the new learning commons, as well as we talked about some furniture solutions that could be incorporated into the new design as well. We again had a lot of great discussion and feedback from everyone that we've also been having throughout all of the past 4 sessions. So it's been really great to have that from everyone during this process. So this afternoon, we're kind of looking forward to getting a little bit more of your input, your last comments to help us define the social architecture for this project. And we'll just quickly do a brief introduction again with our agenda. So if you joined the meeting about 10 minutes early, you may have already seen it, but for those who missed it, we are going to do a quick Zoom refresher as usual. We'll do a recap of the 4 sessions, any last minute community input or comments that people have, and then we'll do our final wrap up with you guys. So as per usual, before we get going with the event, I'll just go over the few Zoom logistics. Given the challenges of doing a community engagement session remotely, we're going to keep everyone muted, and you can use the chat function or the raise your hand function if you want to speak out loud or ask any questions. So if you're using your desktop computer, then your icons will look similar to the image on the left-hand side of your screen. And if you're using your smartphone or your tablet, then you're just going to have to tap on the 3 dots and a menu will appear with the chat or raise your hand features, similar to the images on the right. We've kind of planned for a little bit of open discussion as we go through all of our recap, as well as there should be, again, a few minutes at the very end of the presentation if anybody has any other comments or questions they'd like to ask. And lastly, if you're having any technical difficulties during the presentation today, we are recording the session as usual, and it will be uploaded on our project website in the next 24 hours.
Okay, so let's get started here. So as you guys all know now, our goal was to understand the social and cultural context of the College of the Rockies and the Kootenay region in order to shape the project vision. We look at different levels of social architecture in order to allow us to shape the physical architecture of the project. So we started with the existing conditions of the library in session 1. Then we move through the design principles of reorganize, rebalance, and reconfigure on session number 2. And then we move into the remove and reveal in session number 3. And the principle of retain in session number 4. We also talk about some different furniture solutions that could be incorporated into the new design to help zone the new learning commons into public and private spaces, as well as together and alone spaces in the last session number 4. So for each of these topics, we strive to answer the question, how does the library move forward into a new one-stop learning commons that will merge key student success and support services within the 21st learning community? As well, we consider how these design decisions can foster strong relationships between students, community, faculty, and staff, and as well students with other students. So as you guys already know, we were discussing the existing library and how the space is or is not meeting the needs of the college right now. As a couple bullet points, we understand that the library has a traditional layout consisting of 2 floors of book stacks. You know, there's limited barrier-free accessibility throughout the space. There are a few study rooms available for students to use. These 4 groups are dispersed throughout the library. Has an administration office space within the library, and also has some labs for audio and visual support at this moment.
So we had some really great turnouts for each of our 4 sessions that we hosted. So back on January 14th, we started, as Isaac had mentioned, with the existing conditions. And we talked about all of that. We had 23 participants signed in live with our Zoom presentation. Then we had January 21st, where we talked about the reorganize, rebalance, and reconfigure design principles, with 18 participants signed into the live Zoom, as well as we did receive 1 additional questionnaire. On January 28th, we then moved on to remove and reveal, with 17 participants signed in for this live Zoom event, and another additional questionnaire that was filled out. And then finally, we had last week, which was February 4th, where we talked about retain and our furniture solutions, with 13 participants signed into Zoom. So a lot of great turnout, which is exactly what we were hoping to see. So during session number 1, as we already know, we did talk about the existing library conditions. This was important for us to understand because we wanted to know what is and what wasn't working within the existing space, so that we can now effectively develop a new design for the new learning commons space that all the users will appreciate and utilize in the future. So the following is a little summary of the feedback that we received from all the individuals that joined us during that live Zoom event. So we talked about some of the different services that you wanted to see included and incorporated into the new design. So it was really important for everybody to have some form of tutoring services, be that as peer tutoring or outdoor, like outsourced tutoring. It was also super important that they wanted to see a cafe. So having another kind of chat point or feature point within the actual Learning Commons library space. Some flexible instructional space as well, so it's not just used for one type of learning. It can be flexible for whatever it needs to be used for during that instructional period. So that was really great, lots of great feedback there. We know that right now the students and faculty and staff are probably the primary users of the library. Also our international students, is a lot of great, there's a lot of great resources when you're an international student to get from the library as well. So, but they are not the only people using the library. As we can see, there were still lots of other individuals who are there in the library very often and using it. So we want to make sure this space, this new space, works for everybody. There's also a lot of services that are already being provided in the library. So obviously the borrowing of your physical resources, so the borrowing of the books and everything. Our College of the Rockies online Moodle support. Sounds like you guys have a really great online presence with the online learning right now that's happening. So having that online support there was great to hear, as well as just your general IT student help desk. So all the great support for the students right there in the library. We want to make sure that continues, but lots of services. We also know there's a lot of things that necessarily weren't working well or needed to be improved on as we move forward with the design. Number one, it sounded like there's a lot of accessibility problems. Making sure that the space is accessible for all types of users, no matter what and how you're moving around the library space. The layout and the flow of the library maybe isn't to the best utilization of the space, so making sure that that could get improved as we move forward. The signage and visibility, how people see where the library is located, how they get to it. Definitely sounded like a little bit of a challenge going forward. There's a lot of stuff though that was also working very well for the library where it's located right now. Being where it is at the moment, it has a lot of good central access, which is very important. We want it to be central so that it's not too far for anybody in one spot to be accessing it. And as we already mentioned, the AV and IT support, having all of that resourcing right in the Learning Commons space is really great. And then finally, we talked about whether or not the actual current location of the library was ideal, whether it was good where it was or if there was another location that might be better. So there was a lot of conversation kind of going back and forth as to what the best solution would be. So we've got a lot of kind of planning on our end to take, but we did hear it is in a really great location right now because of it being so central, but maybe a location with some better access is a little bit of something that we need to consider moving forward. So great feedback, great discussions that we heard, which we love.
So during session number 2, we focused on the design principle of reorganize and rebalance and reconfigure in relation to the new Learning Commons. Structuring the space around central gathering area helps the Learning Commons focus the configuration on the users from the resources and reinforces the sense of community within an engaging and interactive gathering space. The Learning Commons should embrace and enhance to continue to find innovative ways to deliver these services, right, as the needs of the community evolve. So the following is a summary of the feedback that we received from the individuals that joined us on session number 2 and the additional questionnaires that we received as well. So one of the questions we asked is, how do we make the new Learning Commons space more inviting for all users? So one of the things that we heard quite a bit was, better lighting, maybe a secondary entrance or exit. Definitely more meeting spaces, comfortable seating, separation between the noisy and the quiet spaces, large group study areas, potentially a student lounge. As I say, right, and natural light for windows and of course, lots of power outlets for technology. Another thing that we'll ask is about how do you see that how would you like to see the communication and the collaboration fostered in the new design? And again, with that, we hear about high quality Wi-Fi, zone areas for various work styles. We heard that maybe a coffee shop would be a good idea to enhance that collaboration. Again, some other technology, things like smart boards, some rectangular glass walls would be good. Definitely some soundproof study rooms. So for those smaller group study areas, study spaces. And again, so that's kind of in terms of collaboration. Then we asked, what are the most popular spots in the existing library that are used by students? And the first one, I guess, one of the main ones was the study rooms, the study corrals, and of course, those collaborative spaces. But again, right, with that is just, the need of the need of small meeting rooms, maybe the common area, and areas where there can be more technology in place. So some of the other questions we had is, are more study room required? And of course, the answer was yes, right? As we heard, that's kind of the spaces that are used the most for students. So definitely. Which other kind of spaces should be considered for the Learning Commons? Definitely to be soundproof, as we said, different sizes and make them accessible, as well as maybe individual pods with, again, bright light and with comfortable furniture. What technology needs to be added in the meeting rooms right now and in the general gathering area? Definitely writable surfaces, lots of power outlets for sure, as we just mentioned before. Maybe a creative space like a makerspace. That was a good good feedback that we got. A makerspace would be great. And with that, larger monitors, smart boards, public display monitors, maybe a 3D printer, right? And potentially some lockers. Other spaces that, that some on-program flexible spaces that you guys would like to see. We heard that definitely they had to be some mobile furniture that has to be durable, cleanable, and comfortable, right? Definitely, and different types of loungers, coaches, and step stairs potentially.
Yeah, so the image that you now see on your screen, we've seen the imagery throughout all of our presentations, but now we're seeing it as we can start labeling some of the areas that have been highlighted as important for the college community. So in this example here, we can see there are public display monitors. There's a collaborative zone. So this is kind of your public together areas. We're getting a lot of natural light from the windows, and obviously a lot of great comfortable seating for all of the students to use moving forward.
Suzanne says, beautiful.
Great.
Yeah, again, on this image here as well that we're seeing right now, we're seeing some example, right, of how, how that technology can be added into the spaces. You can see on the back some small individual group studies with some screens, some writable walls. We can see, the flexible furniture that could move around, and, and the technology, enabled in these areas, right, that you can plug in either your computer, your laptop, or there's a dedicated computer at those stations. So those are kind of nice examples how to integrate those principles in a space.
Great. So next then we talked during session 3 about the principles of remove and reveal in relation to the new learning commons. So we need to remove the barriers within the learning commons so that it allows more learning opportunities for people of all backgrounds. And remembering that when the library reveals itself to the community, it provides access to all of the resources for growth and learning, while also then recognizing our historic and ongoing connections that the college already has with the Kinbasket and Ktunaxa peoples. So we'll kind of get into a little bit of the feedback that we heard from all of the individuals who joined us during that live session, as well as the additional questionnaire that we received after the fact as well.
Brenda adds that those are all colored to the Rocky colors that were shown in that previous slide.
Maybe just a little bit of thought and process, or maybe just purely coincidental. So during session number 3, we did ask some questions relating to, for example, the educational programming. What educational program did we want to see hosted in the new learning commons space? So again, we heard the tutoring was very important, as well as the Indigenous programs and events, library workshops or research workshops, maybe some local author talks, celebrating our student cultural celebrations as well, even having student presentations or sharing student work, and having a research conference as well for the students being important. We also talked about how we can make the historic and ongoing connections with the Ktunaxa and Kinbasket peoples transparent and accessible. So definitely we will for sure be consulting with the local community members, as was mentioned during the presentation, but important that we have cultural appreciation, as well as maybe including some art and some colors that are important. Nice to hear as well that it sounds like it's definitely important for the inclusion of self-service opportunities in the new learning commons, so that students can feel like they can do some things on their own and they don't necessarily have to wait if there's a lot of congestion, but keeping in mind that that person-to-person contact is still needed. So having a mix of multiple service points versus one main circulation desk provides us with a little bit of a mix of circulation. It helps reduce that congestion as well, but it helps to provide that person-to-person contact, as well as keeping the important support services together, so that everybody knows that they only have to go to one area to find what they're looking for. Next, we talked about the ongoing connections for the College of the Rockies. So making sure that there's connections honored with the international education and a student association. Those were two important ones. Also the regional campuses, the industry, our adult learners, broadening that outside of the college now with the Cranbrook community as well. Acknowledging the connection that we have from Columbia Basin Trust as they are providing some of the funding. The high schools that come in and use the space as well. In general, the Kootenai lifestyle, maybe encouraging or having already a connection with new immigrants or residents to the Cranbrook area. Love all the local museums, the Railway Museum, Fort Steele, those parts of the heritage and culture already in the community. And then we also talked about how important our natural elements are. To have those still included in the project is very important to the majority of the people who attended that session. So really great to hear that as well, because that fits right in with the connections that the college wants to keep with the Cranbrook community. The staff and admin areas, we had some conversations on whether those should be transparent or private. Again, a lot of conversation of having a mix of both, or having some semi-transparency between the spaces, while remembering that privacy is important still for some people. There's some stuff that just needs to be done behind closed doors and not broadcasted through a window all the time. The services though, we want the services to still be nice and open and bright and collaborative within the space. So then talking about whether the Learning Commons should be visually open throughout the entire space, or if there should be some private areas as well. So this is where we discussed that it would be better if this space was mostly open. So the staff areas could be a little bit more private, but the rest of the library could be a little more open to have a creative balance, some open collaborative space, but still our private study and meeting rooms. The idea of transparent walls or flexible movable walls. So lots of ways we can create some creative identity in the library.
So again, this image over here is a nice example, right? How we can see some of those, maybe some semi-transparent visual dividers. We can see maybe some self-service opportunities within the library. Still feels pretty open, and also you can see how some of these spaces are also being defined through some of the finishes, right? The floor finishes, the change from carpet to maybe some resilient flooring. Some of the lighting, so you can see how you can start creating these dividers, these spaces without actually having walls. So this is a nice example how it shows some of this these design opportunities.
And then on the flip side, then having this example showing we have one main circulation desk that maybe has areas for you to have multiple different services in one location, but different access points. So we can see there's one large main circulation desk, but there's the four corners. You can maybe have four separate services that are linked together, all within that same circulation. Helps to have that, you still have multiple service points, but they're all in the same location. In this example too, we can see that it is very visually open. You can see throughout the entire space, but it's also a very accessible design. So your furniture is very movable, so you can move it and group it together in ways that allow students to, maybe if there's a wheelchair, they can move through the space with the wheelchair, or if there's a scooter situation, they could have that. without having to disturb the rest of the space or bumping into things and feeling claustrophobic almost.
So during the session number 4, we focus on the design principle of retain in relation to the learning commons and how it's important to retain the historic character of any building, right? So it's important to understand what is the historic character so we can retain that and incorporate some of those elements right into this new space. We also talk about furniture solutions that could be incorporated into the design to define the spaces, right, that are public versus private, and also the places that are together versus alone. So the following is going to be is the summary of the feedback that we received from the individuals that joined us on session number 4 in the Zoom event. So the question that we asked is, are there any historical features from the library or the college that should be incorporated in the new design, right? One of the main things is, of course, integration of the new design with the existing building. That's important to understand the context. The use of wood, light, natural elements, that's important to consider. The indigenous content, you know, timber frame style, clear walls, transparency. So those are some of the features that we heard that are important to retain. Then we ask how important is to you to retain the historic background of the existing library or college in the new design. And we heard that, yeah, somewhat is important, right? To understand the existing context and to retain the elements that make sense, right? To have that continuity of the elements around us. Another question that we asked was that, what does a private alone furniture and learning spaces look like to everybody? And with that, we heard about study corrals, task lighting, desk with top surfaces, big work areas, small private spaces, pods. So yeah, some variation in terms of areas in order to facilitate this private alone kind of learning spaces that we're looking for.
And so we also asked then, what does the public alone furniture look like to you? So here we heard that loungers, something like a laptop bar, or bicycle powered desks are also very important, as well as the integration of high back chairs, pull out footstools. Again, lots of power outlets, making sure that technology is there and enabled. The furniture is movable and accessible, maybe even having like a sit-stand style desk or larger desks with just dividers between them, creating a lot of variety in the space. Then we asked, what does then the private together furniture look like to you? So in this case, we heard the movable walls so that you could have flexible sizes on your study room. So integration of a large or a small study group, semi-enclosed group seating, making sure it's not institutional, like it's creative. And again, making sure there's a variety of closed versus open study spaces, our writable surfaces, again, the flexible, movable furniture, making sure some of the study rooms are soundproof and everything's comfortable, interesting, technologically enabled. And again, a variety, they're variable. And then finally, what does your public together furniture look like? Important to have these spaces near the entrance, and having an inclusion of media screens so that we can display updates for the library or the college to the entire student body in a simple, interesting way. Again, movable furniture, flexible furniture, maybe just as simple as couches and love seats, If there's a cafe, having this near the cafe to keep that as a noisy area. And again, just still having that variety, the variability between the furniture. So in this example, we can see a couple different spaces then. We can see the example of your private alone furniture with the study corrals versus your private together or even private alone, depending on how big that study room is, with the study rooms. We're seeing a lot of transparency in the space with the glass walls, so that you can see whether those rooms are available to be used or if they're being used already by somebody else. Same with, it's just open so that you can see if any of those study corrals are available for you to use as well.
Yeah, on this next image is a nice example of some public together space, right? You can see, first of all, you can see a nice connection to the outdoors. You can see a nice garden out there that you can access as well. You can see some nice collaboration spaces where you can be sitting down, maybe working in smaller groups, but also in an open space, right? So you can see that little kind of bar, kind of space where you can sit down. This has connection to technology. You can sit down, you can look outside, you can work, you know, in a more maybe public area. So yeah, within this image as well, you can see, right, with the use of the floor finishes, you can define those areas pretty nicely as well. And just an example here, we have a nice bulkhead that kind of ties together that space as well, right? Without the use of walls. So that's a nice space that that shows some nice examples of different types of furniture with the finishes, kind of the floor finishes, how they are dividing these areas, and the, you know, the use of the different types of lighting as well, right? Is to have a different sense of the feel of the space, right? As you approach and as you're using the space as well.
Just a couple comments on that before we move along. Brenda says she loves the bar for laptop or quick use, and Suzanne just plain old loves it.
So yeah, so this kind of brings us to the end of the summary, that session for today. We really appreciate everybody's comments, feedback within the last a few weeks. We are now, as you see, we already gathered all this information. We're really gonna have it here with us, and we're gonna use this as we move to the next steps, right, of this process. And the next steps will be just, with all the information we gather, we need to create a functional program, you know, pretty much decide which spaces we need to create, you know, all the areas, the spaces, and come up with some simple, you know, conceptual floor plans, right, that we could review and understand then, you know, how this is going to affect to fit all these spaces that we heard, how this is going to fit within the existing college, within the existing library, and how we can, you know, reach the goals of creating a learning commons for the college. Also, with that, I don't know if Brenda, you want to give us a few.
You bet. You bet. So again, thank you, Isaac and Tracy for carrying us and helping us through this process so far. It's been a great experience, and I think we've heard a lot of really good ideas. As Isaac mentioned, the next phase of this will be a functional program, which really does take all the stuff they've heard, what we've provided them in terms of a little bit of background information, and they come up with a plan of how we might make this happen. This is, I'll reiterate, phase one, and there will be more work to come and more investment of time and energy on many people's part. I do want to let everybody know that we are looking at reaching out to students again more specifically. We want to make sure that we get really good input from our students, and we know that it's hard for them sometimes to get online with us at specific times. So we are going to be reaching out to create some uniquely and specifically student focus groups so that we make sure we're hearing from them. And again, as we carry on with this project, information will be brought back to the campus when Isaac's group puts together some floor plans, furniture plans, some conceptual drawings, that kind of stuff to help us imagine what this space could become. We will definitely be bringing it back to the community for input and thought. You know, we appreciate all the input you've given so far, but we'll be looking for more as we carry on with this project. It's very exciting, and we are fortunate that it seems like our senior leaders are on side and excited about this, for this to move forward.
Thank you, Brenda.
And further to that, Carrie adds, this is a game-changing project. Brenda, well done. And John
Thank you.
says, looking forward to that, and very happy to see you're reaching out to the students as well.
Yeah, those students are hard to capture unless you're feeding them. So we're going to feed them. So somehow. So.
You can always grab people's attention with food.
Absolutely, you know, that helps. It works. So, but again, if you think of anything, we would love to hear. We'll continue to seek input throughout the entire phases of this project. I don't know how quickly it will move forward, but we do. I am hoping that there will be some concrete changes in the library within the next year. Given COVID, I don't know how all of this will work out, but even some minor adjustments to the way we're using the space, I'm hoping we get to do some of that. So so that you will believe that this project is going to happen, because I'm committed to it, and I think many others are as well.
That's right, and we are, our team is looking forward to continue working with the college to develop this project that is exciting for all the college community.
Yeah. So, all right.
Thanks for seeking input and continuing to do so. Much appreciated.
Yep, you will be hearing from us. You'll get sick of hearing from me so, at some point. So, all right.
So I guess before we kind of wrap things up for the afternoon, we just kind of want to leave it open here for a couple minutes. If there's anybody who has any last minute feedback they want to provide, or any comments, questions they'd like to put forth, feel free to use the chat function or raise your hand feature. But we'd love to hear if there's anything else anybody has to provide. So while everybody's kind of thinking there, I just, again, as Barrie Architecture, we just want to say thank you again to everybody who participated, whether you were here for just one session or if you came for every single one of the 5 sessions that we hosted. Thank you for your participation. And make sure you keep checking out the project website for updates as the project progresses. As Brenda mentioned, we'll be providing lots of updates as it goes forward. As well as all of the sessions that we had recorded, they are all going to be available on the project website as well throughout all of the next processes. And as well with those recordings, the questionnaires will also be still made available for any additional feedback anybody wants to provide too. So please share the link and encourage everyone that you know to watch the presentations and fill out those questionnaires to provide their input, because as much information as we can gather from everyone, the better we can make this learning commons for all of the users. And then for this presentation, we do have one last questionnaire, just a short little questionnaire to kind of tell us how we did. So we'd really appreciate it if you guys could take a couple minutes to fill that questionnaire out and just let us know how we did. Yeah, so if there's any last minute comments or feedback, feel free to let us know.
Michelle says, thank you for this platform and for the opportunity to have input. Suzanne says, Isaac and your team have been awesome from the start.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep, I will reiterate that. This is Brenda, that the whole Barry architecture team has been fabulous, and we are fortunate to have them working with us on this. They bring some really good experience to the table, and that's great. So, and I look forward to continuing.
We do too.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, I guess the silence is a good thing. We've answered everybody's questions, so I'll take that as a win.
There you go. That sounds good.
Great. Well, again, thank you everybody for all of your participation. We greatly appreciate all of the feedback and discussions that you've helped provide for us. So reminder, just fill out that questionnaire and let everybody know about the link, share the link, and have them fill out their additional input for all of the other sessions. And today's summary session will be uploaded on the project website as well tomorrow morning.
Wonderful. Thank
Good
you
night.
so much.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good evening.